Welcome everyone, I am Xénia Farkas.
And I'm Márton Bene.
We are from Hungary, we are working at the Center for Social Sciences, and today we will present our article published in the special issue of the International Journal of Press and Politics. It's titled Images, Politicians and Social Media, the Patterns and Effects of Politicians' Image-Based Political Communication Strategies on Social Media. Okay, so why visuals? Compared with written or spoken texts, images are not only better to be remembered, but can grasp more specific messages as well. Thus, visuals are an essential part of political communication, both in general and specifically on social media, where the role of visuals is even heightened and they are used as a strategic toolkit of political actors. However, political communication research often ignored the visual aspects of communication for long, and the methodological challenges of studying visuals often led researchers to treat them as illustration to textual or verbal communication, and the visual content frequently remained understudied. Fortunately, over the last 2 years, visuals have been more at the forefront of political communication research. However, there are still numerous unexplored areas. Thus, we aim to fill at least 4 research gaps. To create a visual coding scheme that is suitable to investigate images as objects of interest on their own, and to explore political actors' visual personalization strategies. Also, to compare visual strategies on different social media platforms, and to investigate the effects of different images on user engagement. In Hungary, politicians use 2 platforms intensively, Facebook and Instagram. Therefore, our cross-platform investigation compares visual communication tools employed on these sites. So, the research questions and hypotheses. Since we understand visuals as elements of strategic political communication for achieving candidates' political goals, as so to influence voters through visual communication. Consequently, our first research question was as follows. What kind of visual communication strategies are applied by political actors on social media platforms? To understand political actors' visual communication strategies, we specify our research question and adopt a cross-platform approach to explore what features can be considered general characteristics of social media visual communication and what the platform-specific strategies are. We expect that politicians on social media platforms predominantly use visual communication to personalize their appearance. While we expect that on both platforms, visuals are primarily used for candidate personalization, we assume that visual political communication on Instagram is more informal and thereby more focused on privatization dimension of personalization than on Facebook. While on Instagram, images should be used to display more informal aspects of candidates' life relevant to the individualization dimension of personalization. Invariably, political actors' purpose is to influence voters through political communication. Hence, it is highly important to investigate how voters respond to candidates' visual communication on social media. Thus, our second research question is, what kind of images perform well on social media platforms? We also focus on the questions of what types of visual tools trigger likes as the most widely used and comparable reaction form, and what cross-platform similarities and differences we can identify in the liking response to politicians' visual communication. We expect that personalized images will be more liked on both platforms, but we also hypothesize that on Facebook, users may be more open to formal, political, work-related individualized images, while on Instagram, privatized pictures should be more likely to be liked. To answer the research questions, we have applied a combination of inductive and deductive qualitative visual content analysis. The inductive part was employed on a random 10% of the images in order to formulate categories that describe the images in a detailed way and find the most appropriate groups of categories that help investigate as many aspects of the images as possible. After formulating a detailed and exhaustive coding scheme that covers the most evident characteristics of politicians' visual communication, the visual elements had to be connected to the literature that is mostly concerned of the verbal appearance of personalization, both in the case of individualization and privatization. Even though our brain processes visual messages quickly, reading and identifying the messages was challenging, thus we grouped the visual features into formal and informal dimensions that we considered further on as visual appearance of individualization and privatization. We argued that formal visual elements such as official context, campaign scenes, or official clothing relates to the individualization dimension, focusing on the political work of the particular candidates, while informal visual elements such as selfies, popular cultural objects, private context, or casual clothing are associated with the privatization dimension, concentrating on the personal aspects of the politicians. Categories that we couldn't assign to the formal or informal dimensions are not removed from our investigation as they still represent important indicators of visual political communication strategy, and they function as crucial control variables during the analysis. It is important to note that most categories are treated as non-mutually exclusive elements, and we coded them if they appeared in the picture. Deductive analysis was applied on the dataset described on this slide. The visual content and context of the pictures were coded by undergraduates. As coding visual material may allow more space to subjective judgments than textual data, each post was coded by 3 independent coders, and we accepted only those codes that were coded by at least 2 coders. The deductive qualitative visual content analysis variables are listed on this slide, such as the type of the images, the content of the images, the people in the picture, the candidate in the picture, the cultural and the political references were also coded, and the feature and the sentiment of the images as well.
So turning to the results, we first discussed the patterns of politicians' visual communication and then focus on the aspects of user engagement with these images. So first of all, we found that visual communication on both platforms is highly personalized. So our first hypothesis is supported. However, it is important to note that visual communication on Instagram is much more personalized than on Facebook. So overall, on Facebook, 66% of images are self-made and or candidate focused, which was our definition for personalized visual communication, while this percentage was 95% on Instagram. Also in line with our hypothesis, formal elements are significantly more employed on Facebook than Instagram, while the informal elements are presented in a larger degree on Instagram than Facebook. However, it is important to note that formal elements are also largely present on Instagram, even if they are used less frequently than on Facebook. And they are more mixed with informal elements. So for example, with pictures about family members, non-political personal messages, selfies, kosher dress, while on Facebook, the candidates focus images are more about campaign moments from official settings and when the candidates wear official clothes. So this is the main difference between the two platforms. So turning to the users' engagement with visual communication, it turned out that users are more likely to like pictures where the candidates are present. And also self-made content were more reacted on Facebook, but not on Instagram. But this could be due to the fact that on Instagram, the large majority of the pictures were self-made. So the variance was not too high in this case. That's why we probably didn't find any significant relationship. So our fourth hypothesis is also supported. Also, it seems that on Facebook, people particularly like visuals where political work is more at the forefront, so more related to the formal elements we distinguish in our coding scheme. But these formal elements are not particularly popular on Instagram, so this hypothesis is also supported. However, our sixth hypothesis should be rejected because even if informal elements are more often used on Instagram, they are not more popular on Instagram from user suspect. So it was only the appearance of family members that were more likely to be liked by the users, but it was the same on Facebook as well. So in this case, we cannot see any platform-related differences.
Okay, so a short conclusion. Our findings on political actors' visual communication strategies on social media are in line with those of text-based research. The presence of personalization in visual tools is highly significant as politicians often upload images that depict themselves and their own visual content. And these images are also popular among their followers on both Facebook and Instagram. Thus, personalization can be considered as a general feature of social media visual communication. However, there are major differences in the level of personalization of visual communication between the two platforms, as images are much more personalized on Instagram than Facebook. When it comes to the type of personalization employed by the candidates, the results show further differences between the two platforms. Instagram has a more informal character with more spontaneous, non-political and casual images, while on Facebook, more formal, settled and political visuals are used by the politicians. As for the effects of visual cues, it seems that formal visual elements are more popular on Facebook than Instagram. However, informal elements are not more likely to be liked on Instagram. It can be said that visual communication on Instagram is related more to the privatization dimension of personalization, while on Facebook, the individualization component is more frequently displayed. And basically, that's what we wanted to say, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you.